Hello friends and viewers, and welcome to my SchackLulu character guide. If you are just here for a quick reference, I've created a pocket guide for the beginning of the video. SchackLulu's trait is Stinger Dress. She possesses jump, and her trait increases her physical attack. Each time SchackLulu deals damage, she inflicts 1 stack of Stinger Mark on the target. When the Stinger Mark reaches 3 stacks, SchackLulu deals piercing damage and inflicts 1 stack of infection, and resets Stinger Mark on the target. The piercing damage dealt by Stinger Dress scales with her physical attack. When Stinger Dress is triggered, SchackLulu recovers 1 energy, and the cooldown of Bewitch and Grace of Swan are reduced by 1 turn up to 1 time per round. When using ranged skills, the maximum range is increased by 1 tile. In the table below, you can see her power growth at each star level. Notably, she sees moderate gains at star level 3 and star level 5. Her initial skill is Flurry of Stabs. This deals 135% total physical damage, and each damage instance will trigger a Stinger Mark. When attacking, crit increases by 20%. At rank 1, I recommend Predatory Instinct. Predatory Instinct increases SchackLulu's movement by 1 tile when unharmed. When movement plus her charge distance is greater than 3 tiles, her attack is increased by 15% before attacking, lasting until the end of the turn, and is stackable. Using Predatory Instinct means movement will be a key part of SchackLulu's damage rotation, and this pairs well with Grace of Swan at the next rank. Lock On is a passive skill inflicting a physical defense 2 debuff on an enemy with the highest physical attack within 6 tiles at the start of SchackLulu's turn. This is the same skill learnable by Garcia and Crimson Falcon. This passive skill loses value as your character roster grows with more frequent sources of defense debuffs. At rank 3, I recommend Grace of Swan with a Castalia for Bewitch. Grace of Swan is a 1 to 3 tile charge, attacking random enemies within 2 tiles 2 times, each time dealing 10% AoE damage. If Stinger Dress is triggered, then Grace of Swan can be cast again without cast after attacking. Grace of Swan reliably helps to trigger Predatory Instinct's attack bonus at least 1 to 2 times whenever available. With Bewitch, when SchackLulu hits, it increases the damage over time the target receives by 30% for 2 turns. This is a good skill to empower damage over time effects such as Infection, Scorch, Life Loss, and more. Additionally, on healthy targets, SchackLulu will inflict Bewitch, a control debuff that moves the target enemy out of control towards her. At rank 5, your options are Curse or Agile Swap. Curse actively decreases damage taken by 8%, and upon receiving an active attack, SchackLulu will inflict a vulnerable 2 debuff on the attacker for 2 turns. Against healthy enemies, Agile Swap grants SchackLulu 2 dodge attempts for 1 turn and swaps position with the target. Note that Agile Swap has a cooldown of 3 turns, and against enemies who are injured or dying, this reaction skill will functionally have no effect or any damage mitigation or avoidance. While she does gain dodge, it is also entirely possible that she can swap with an enemy into an even worse position. That said, my pick here at rank 5 is Agile Swap. At rank 7, I recommend Final Curtain with a Castalia for Meditator. Final Curtain is SchackLulu's signature ability, attacking random enemies within 3 tiles of her 8 unique times, each attack dealing 20% AoE damage. To optimize priority damage and Stinger Dress triggers, this should ideally be used on as few targets as possible. With Meditator, after SchackLulu hits a target with either of her rank 3 skills, she recovers 1 energy. This can only be triggered once per round. When either of her rank 3 skills hits a healthy target, the target is also inflicted with Attack 2 and Meditator debuffs. Meditator is a disruption debuff that disables passive skills and reduces movement by 1 tile. You may consider Castalia for this to play SchackLulu more comfortably at lower star level, but should be succeeded by Predatory Instinct. At rank 9, I recommend Graceful Sting. Both basic attacks still deal 100% total physical damage, but it's the number of attacks that sets them apart. Graceful Sting deals damage 3 times, so it will always stack 3 Stinger Marks and trigger Stinger Dress. Hypnotic Attack deals damage 2 times, with a 30% chance to inflict sleep on the target. At rank 11, your options are Poison Blade Barrage or Fancy Footwork. Poison Blade Barrage is a single target attack, dealing 70% total damage and inflicting 4 total stacks of infection. This may be useful against event stages or mutations where piercing damage and damage over time effects are more favorable compared to other damage types. Fancy Footwork is the same skill as you are familiar with from Rauya Nostalgia, Blade, and Recruited Assassin, allowing SchackLulu to act as a potential dodge tank in a pinch. Fancy Footwork is always useful to have somewhere in your roster, so if your dodge options are limited, you may consider this. My pick here is Poison Blade Barrage. This is my general build recommendation. In this build, Final Curtain is SchackLulu's core energy dump. Use Grace of Swan on cooldown for mobility and spread stinger marks. With Grace of Swan, SchackLulu should ideally benefit from Predatory Instinct's attack increase once or twice. If you find this challenging to play, you may consider using Meditator instead at lower star level. For weapon recommendations, Blade of Stratagem is a strong option for the physical attack increase and active crit damage increase against enemies with 3 or more debuffs. For more accessible options, Newborn Blade is always a fine option for the HP and physical attack increases. Void Stab is another good option for SchackLulu at higher star level, because she can accrue and maintain void stacks with Grace of Swan. Just be mindful that crit and crit damage applies to her active damage and will not benefit her infection or piercing damage. For trinket recommendations, Flying Blade Arm Guard or Roaring Flint can be used to apply stinger marks, as well as accrue void stacks when using Void Stab. The range of Flying Blade Arm Guard will also increase with SchackLulu's star level. Otherwise, Shield of Justice or Origin Hourglass's attribute increases are always reliable if you have these trinkets to spare. For tarot recommendations, for active damage options, consider Dream of the Magician for raw damage gains or Verdict of Justice for the crit and crit damage increases. For a general option, Course of Fortune is a versatile and hybrid choice for damage, healing, mitigation, and energy recovery. Notably, the AoE shockwave from Course of Fortune will apply Stinger Mark. On any maps with high target count, ranging from allies, enemies, summons, and NPCs, it is always reasonable to consider Temptation of the Devil. For engravings, Sword and Wand remains a fine and comfortable option for the attack and defense gains after moving, increasing her physical and piercing damage. To provide some composition and usage tips, SchackLulu's base movement is 4 tiles, which is 1 less than most Seekers, but she makes up for this by having a ranged skill kit. She deals a mix of physical damage and piercing damage through her trait, in addition to having the ability to regularly inflict infection. While she is a Seeker, recall that damage over time debuffs and piercing damage cannot crit. As such, any crit gains will benefit her physical damage only. On the other hand, she can benefit from damage over time increasing effects like Momo, and piercing vulnerable effects from Afra and Kavar. SchackLulu is part of the Vilder and Alacrity categories. Consider teaming her with Lilywil, Lutfi, and Urkol for their leaders' auras. For a quick overview of external category buffs, Lilywil's Resonance of Blood increases Vilder allies' movement by 1 tile. This can help SchackLulu stack Predatory Instinct. Lutfi's Moment of Crisis attack increase is a strong aura to boost SchackLulu's active damage and piercing damage. Cole's Perfect Assassin increases crit and crit damage by 15%, increasing SchackLulu's active damage, but less so her piercing damage. That concludes this character guide. If you have any feedback to share with me, please leave a comment below. I'm open to listening and being wrong. I'm another player improving and learning more about Sword of Convallaria just like you are. Remember, if you find conflicting information to other guides or content creators, then that means there are multiple ways to build a character and still achieve success. Finally, my social media contacts are displayed here to connect with me as well. Last but not least, I want to credit and shout out these resources for helping me put together this character guide. Voyage Memento for character build samples and reference links, the No Potion fan site for skill images and skill descriptions, and the Billy Game site for character art assets. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.